In the serene dawn at Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven, 3 leopard cubs were rescued from the clutches of the illegal wildlife trade. Tragically, their mother did not survive the ordeal. Housed in the haven, the cubs became withdrawn, refusing food due to the trauma of their loss. When traditional methods failed and hope began to fade, a bold idea emerged. Introduce a gentle rescue dog named Bella to act as their surrogate mother. Could a dog, herself a recent mother, save these wild lives? What started as a desperate measure blossomed into a miraculous bond, defying expectations and redefining wildlife rehabilitation. This is the heartwarming tale of an unlikely connection as Bella, a tender-hearted mutt, steps in to nurture the struggling leopard cubs. The morning sun had just begun to warm the hills surrounding Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven when Sarah Thompson's phone buzzed. At 60, Sarah had seen nearly everything in her 35 years of wildlife rehabilitation, but the urgency in Ranger Tom's voice hinted at a unique challenge. "We've got 3 leopard cubs," Tom said, his tone heavy. "Tiny things, confiscated from a smuggler at a rest stop near Sedona. We lost the mother. She was too far gone, dehydrated and wounded." Sarah's heart sank, her calloused hand tightening around the phone. The illegal exotic pet trade was a growing scourge in the region. "How old?" she asked, already mentally preparing for the care they'd need. "Barely a month. They're not eating, Sarah. The vet says they're fading fast." Half an hour later, Sarah stood in the Haven's small exam room, peering at 3 spotted bundles of fur, each small enough to cradle in her hand. Their eyes, a hazy green, were unfocused, their bodies trembling with fear and hunger. The smallest, a female with a distinctive black patch on her tail, let out a feeble mew that pierced the quiet morning air. "Oh, little ones," Sarah murmured, gently brushing the smallest cub with a finger. It flinched, hissing faintly. "I know you miss your mama. I'm so sorry." For 3 days, Sarah tried every technique in her arsenal. Bottle feedings were rejected, and syringe feedings caused such distress that the male cub suffered a seizure. The cubs huddled in the corner of their heated enclosure, 3 shrinking specks of fur, their eyes growing dimmer by the hour. On the 4th morning, Sarah sat in her office, head in her hands, the Haven's budget reports forgotten on her desk. Silver Ridge was her life's work, built on land passed down from her father in the high desert of New Mexico. At 60, her weathered face bore the marks of countless rescues, her graying hair tied back in a practical braid. Her grandson, Ethan, a zoology student interning at the Haven, knocked gently before entering. "Gran, I heard you didn't sleep last night," he said, placing a steaming mug of tea on her desk. At 21, Ethan had his grandmother's steady blue eyes and a passion for innovative rehabilitation techniques. Sarah sighed. "Those leopard cubs won't last another day without food." "I've tried everything, Ethan." He leaned against the desk, his expression pensive. "Not everything, Gran. What about Bella?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Bella? She's barely a year old, and she's a dog, Ethan. A rescue mutt." "A rescue mutt who just weaned her own pups 2 weeks ago," Ethan countered, his voice bright with possibility. "She's still producing milk, and she's the calmest creature I've ever met." Sarah hesitated. "It's risky." Ethan's gaze was firm. "Riskier than letting them starve? You always said sometimes we have to try the impossible." Sarah's thoughts drifted to her mentor's words from years ago. Sometimes nature needs a nudge to connect the dots. "Get Bella," she said at last. "But we do this carefully, Ethan. Very carefully." Bella had arrived at the Haven the previous fall, a pregnant stray found shivering in a roadside culvert during a rare desert storm. A medium-sized dog of mixed heritage, perhaps some collie, maybe a touch of lab. She had warm brown fur and soulful hazel eyes that radiated patience. After delivering her litter in the Haven's clinic, she'd proven an exceptional mother, her 5 pups quickly adopted by families in the nearby town of Willow Springs. Bella had become a Haven favorite, trailing Sarah on her rounds, her gentle presence soothing the injured animals. Sarah had meant to find her a forever home after her recovery, but somehow that plan kept getting postponed. They brought Bella to a quiet room next to the leopard cub's enclosure. Sarah sat on the floor, cradling the smallest cub, the female with the black patch tail, in a soft blanket. Bella lay nearby, her head tilted curiously, her eyes locked on the trembling cub. Slowly, Sarah introduced them, watching as Bella sniffed the cub gently, her tail wagging softly. To everyone's astonishment, the cub didn't recoil. Instead, it nuzzled closer, drawn to Bella's warmth. Over the next hour, Bella patiently allowed the cubs to approach, her maternal instincts kicking in as they began to nurse. By the end of the day, all 3 cubs had fed, their tiny bodies visibly stronger. Over the weeks, Bella became their anchor. She groomed them, played gently, and slept curled around them, her presence a steady comfort. The cubs grew stronger, their eyes brightening, their playful pounces returning. Sarah and Ethan watched in awe as the unlikely family thrived, rewriting what they thought possible in wildlife rehabilitation. The smallest cub, now named Ember for her fiery spirit, was the first to bound after Bella, mimicking her movements in a clumsy dance that brought laughter to the Haven staff. Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven became known for this extraordinary bond, a testament to the power of unconventional solutions and the resilience of life. Bella, the gentle mutt, didn't just save 3 leopard cubs. She showed the world that love and instinct could bridge even the widest divides. The smallest leopard cub's breathing was faint, her tiny body cool despite the heated blanket. "Easy, Bella," Sarah murmured as Ethan guided the dog into the room. "Easy, girl." Bella's nose twitched, her ears pricking forward. She approached cautiously, her tail giving small, tentative wags. When she reached Sarah, she lowered her head, gently sniffing the tiny bundle in the towel. The cub stirred, emitting a weak hiss that seemed to drain her last reserves of energy. Sarah held her breath, ready to pull the cub away at any sign of hostility. But what unfolded next would remain etched in her memory forever. Bella let out a soft whine, hauntingly similar to the sound she made when seeking her own puppies. She lay down beside Sarah, extending her head toward the cub and beginning to lick it with tender, motherly strokes. Instead of shrinking away, as she had from human touch, the cub stilled. After a moment, she turned her tiny face toward Bella's warmth, seeking comfort in her fur. "Gran," Ethan whispered, his eyes wide, "look." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she carefully placed the cub closer to Bella. The dog immediately curled around her, continuing to groom the tiny creature as if she were her own pup. "Let's try the others," Sarah said softly. One by one, they introduced the other 2 cubs, and the same miracle repeated. Bella accepted each, gathering them against her warm body, grooming them with maternal care. Within an hour, all 3 cubs were nestled against her belly, and to Sarah's astonishment, they began to nurse. "It's not perfect nutrition," Sarah murmured, watching the cubs suckle weakly. "We'll need to supplement with formula if they'll take it, but this connection, it might just save them." Ethan squeezed his grandmother's shoulder. "You always said love is the best medicine, Gran." Over the next week, a transformation unfolded that defied Sarah's decades of experience. Under Bella's devoted care, the leopard cubs began to thrive. They gained weight, their fur grew sleeker, and their eyes sparkled with kittenish curiosity. Bella never left their side, grooming them, gently carrying them by the scruff when they wandered too far, and issuing soft growls when their play grew too rough. The Haven staff named the cubs Ember, the female with the black patch tail, Scout, the larger male, and Flicker, the smaller male who was quickest to explore. Bella seemed to know each by name, responding uniquely to their individual mews and antics. Sarah documented everything, capturing photos and videos, keeping detailed notes on their progress. This unprecedented interspecies adoption was unlike anything she'd seen, and she recognized its potential to reshape wildlife rehabilitation practices. By 8 weeks, the cubs were eating solid food, a specialized formula mixed with small bits of appropriate meat, though they still curled up against Bella's warmth each night. Their play grew distinctly feline, with stalking, pouncing, and climbing becoming favorite pastimes. Bella watched with maternal patience, occasionally joining their games, but mostly serving as their safe haven. "They're developing perfectly," Dr. Martinez, the haven's consulting veterinarian, said during a visit. A woman in her late 30s, she dedicated her career to wildlife medicine. Examining Scout, she added, no signs of human imprinting, which is critical. But their bond with Bella worries me. They'll need to be released or placed in a proper facility eventually. They can't stay with a dog forever. Sarah nodded, though her heart ached. Silver Ridge's mission was rehabilitation, ideally for release or placement in suitable wildlife facilities. Keeping wild animals as pets, even in a haven, contradicted her principles. We'll deal with that when the time comes, she said, watching Ember scamper back to Bella after a playful tumble. For now, she's giving them what they need. Dr. Martinez cautioned, the longer they're with her, the harder the separation will be. By 4 months, the Cubs had become Silver Ridge's unofficial mascots. Volunteers watched from a distance as the Cubs practiced coordinated hunting pounces on dry grasses or each other's tails. Bella remained their constant, her role shifting from nurturing mother to patient playmate and guardian. Sarah knew decisions loomed. The Cubs were growing fast, their kitten spots fading to adult leopard patterns, their green eyes shifting to the amber of mature leopards. Soon, they'd need to transition toward independence, as they would in the wild. We've had interest from the Desert Peak Preserve in Nevada, Ethan said one evening as they sat on the porch of Sarah's cabin, the sunset bathing the juniper trees in amber. They have a top-notch leopard habitat and educational program. All 3 could stay together. Sarah nodded, her heart heavy. It's a great option, but we need to start weaning them from Bella soon, before the transfer. The next day, they began the slow process of separation, moving the Cubs to a larger enclosure with more space to practice their wild instincts. Bella was allowed supervised visits, her presence still a comfort, but gradually reduced. The transition was hard. Ember, especially, would cry for Bella, her plaintive mews echoing through the haven. But with time, the Cubs adapted, their wild nature asserting itself. By 6 months, they were thriving in their new enclosure, their bond with Bella a cherished memory that had saved their lives. When the day came for their transfer to Desert Peak, Sarah and Ethan watched the transport vehicle depart, Bella sitting quietly at their side. You did good, girl, Sarah whispered, scratching Bella's ears. The dog wagged her tail, her hazel eyes calm, as if she knew she'd given the Cubs the start they needed to return to the wild. Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven's story of Bella and the leopard cub spread, inspiring new approaches to rehabilitation and proving that sometimes the most unlikely bonds could rewrite the rules of survival. As the leopard cubs ate their morning meal, Sarah and Ethan moved Bella to Sarah's cabin, a quarter-mile from the Cubs' enclosure at Silver Ridge Wildlife Haven. The reaction was immediate and heart-wrenching. Realizing Bella was gone, the Cubs, Ember, Scout, and Flicker began pacing frantically, their high-pitched calls echoing through the haven. They refused their food, clawed at the enclosure doors, and huddled together in distress. Bella's response was equally devastating. She howled mournfully, scratching at Sarah's door until her paws bled. This isn't working, Ethan said after 4 hours of escalating tension. Their stress is through the roof. Ember hasn't stopped calling for Bella. Sarah watched through the observation window as Ember sat in the enclosure center, her head tilted back, releasing desperate cries for her surrogate mother. Bring Bella back, Sarah relented. We'll try a slower approach. The reunion was deeply moving. Bella bounded into the enclosure, swarmed by 3 ecstatic leopard cubs, their rumbling purrs filling the air as they nuzzled her, checked her over, and collapsed beside her in relieved exhaustion. Sarah and Ethan exchanged worried glances. The bond was stronger than they'd imagined. Over the next 2 weeks, they experimented with separation strategies, shorter times apart, adjacent enclosures for visual contact, and gradual distance increases. Nothing worked. The cubs grew visibly depressed when parted from Bella for long, and Bella showed signs of anxiety, her gentle eyes clouded with sadness. I've never seen anything like it, Sarah admitted to Dr. Martinez during a concerned call. It's as if they've forgotten their different species. They're a family. Dr. Martinez replied thoughtfully. There are rare cases of interspecies bonds in captivity. The question is what's best for their long-term well-being. The issue came to a head when representatives from Desert Peak Preserve in Nevada arrived to assess the cubs for transfer. Claire and Gwyn, their lead zoologist, observed the unusual family for a day before meeting Sarah in her office. "They're stunning leopards in excellent health," Clara said, reviewing her notes. "But separating them from Bella could cause serious setbacks." Sarah frowned. "So you won't take them?" Part of her felt relief, part disappointment. Clara leaned forward, her eyes bright with an idea. "What if we took Bella too?" Sarah blinked. "She's a domestic dog, not a wild animal. She belongs in a home." "Hear me out," Clara urged. "Our preserve has staff housing. One of our senior keepers, Javier, has been wanting a companion animal. Bella could live with him, with supervised daily visits to the cubs. As the leopards mature, we'd gradually reduce contact, easing them into independence without trauma." The proposal was unorthodox, but it resonated with Sarah. Desert Peak's resources far surpassed Silver Ridge's, and the plan prioritized the animal's welfare. After discussions with the Havens board and a video call with Javier, a kind and experienced keeper in his 40s, Sarah agreed. The departure day was bittersweet. Sarah and Ethan accompanied the animals to Nevada in a specialized van, with Bella and the crated cubs. Bella stayed close to the carriers, occasionally whining to comfort her adopted offspring. Desert Peak Preserve, nestled in the Nevada highlands, was breathtaking, a vast facility with naturalistic habitats and a skilled team. Javier greeted them warmly, his calm demeanor reassuring Sarah. "They'll have 4 acres of rugged terrain," he explained, showing them the leopard's new enclosure, designed to encourage natural behaviors while allowing monitoring. The cubs' introduction to their habitat went smoothly, with Bella's presence easing their nerves as they explored the rocky outcrops and sparse trees. By dusk, Ember, Scout, and Flicker were climbing and pouncing, while Bella watched attentively. When it was time for Bella to go to Javier's cabin for the night, Sarah braced for distress, but the cubs' reaction was milder than expected. They called for Bella a few times, but were distracted by their new surroundings. "They sense this is their place," Javier noted, "and that Bella will be back." Over the next 6 months, Sarah received regular updates and made occasional visits. The cubs flourished in their expansive habitat, growing into strong, healthy subadult leopards. Bella thrived with Javier, enjoying domestic life while spending part of each day with the cubs. As planned, their time together was gradually reduced, allowing the leopards to hone their wild instincts. Ember took to stalking small objects with precision, Scout wrestled logs with growing strength, and Flicker darted through the terrain with agility. The story of Bella and the leopard cubs became a beacon of hope at Desert Peak, proving that unconventional bonds could bridge species divides and support survival. On her final visit, Sarah watched Ember leap onto a boulder, her amber eyes scanning the horizon, while Bella rested contentedly nearby. "You gave them a chance," Sarah whispered to Bella, stroking her fur. Bella's tail thumped gently, as if she understood her role in guiding 3 lost cubs back to their wild hearts. As the leopard family matured, their relationship with Bella, their canine companion, naturally evolved. The leopards Shadow, Ember, and Luna still greeted Bella enthusiastically during her daily visits to their enclosure at the Willow Creek Sanctuary, but they grew increasingly independent. They spent more time exploring their expansive habitat, honing their hunting skills, and testing their strength. By their first birthday, they were striking young adults, their sleek coats gleaming under the Montana sun. Their bond with Bella shifted from dependency to a deep companionship, a connection forged in their early days when Bella had stepped in as their surrogate mother. 18 months later, an urgent call disrupted the sanctuary's calm routine. "Shadow is sick, Clara," reported Sophie, the head caretaker, her voice tight with worry. "Dr. Larson thinks it's a bacterial infection. He's not responding to treatment and refuses to eat." Clara, now 62 and contemplating retirement from her decades-long career at the sanctuary, felt a pang in her chest. The leopards were among the most extraordinary cases she'd ever handled. "How serious is it?" she asked. "Serious enough that we're worried," Sophie replied. He's retreated to the corner of the quarantine area and won't let anyone near him. Clara made her decision immediately. I'm coming. Bring Bella to see him. The drive to Montana seemed endless. By the time Clara arrived, Shadow had been ill for 3 days, growing weaker despite the veterinary team's efforts. We can't administer medication without sedation, and he's too frail for that now, Dr. Larson explained as they hurried to the veterinary building. He needs to eat and take oral antibiotics, but he's rejecting everything. Sophie waited outside the quarantine room, Bella at her side. The dog, now showing silver around her muzzle, remained alert, her eyes sharp with intelligence. She knows something's wrong, Sophie said. She's been restless since Shadow fell ill. Through the observation window, Clara saw Shadow curled in a corner, his once vibrant coat dull, his breathing labored. He looked diminished, fragile. Let Bella in, Clara said decisively. Let's see if she can reach him when we can't. They fitted Bella with a secure harness and leash for safety, then cautiously opened the quarantine room door. Bella entered slowly, her nose twitching, ears pricked with concern. Spotting Shadow, she gave a soft whine of recognition. Shadow lifted his head weakly, his eyes meeting Bella's. For a moment, confusion clouded his gaze, as if the illness had dulled his memory. Then he made a low, rumbling sound, not quite a growl, not quite a purr, a sound Clara recognized from when the leopards were cubs greeting their surrogate mother. With gentle determination, Bella approached Shadow, ignoring the team's cautious warnings. She settled beside him and began grooming his face and ears, just as she had when he was a tiny, orphaned cub. What happened next stunned everyone. Shadow, who had refused food for days, allowed Dr. Larson to approach with a bowl of broth laced with antibiotics. With Bella's familiar presence providing comfort, Shadow lapped weakly at the mixture. "I'll be damned," Dr. Larson murmured. Over the next 3 days, Bella rarely left Shadow's side. She slept beside him, nudged him to eat, and seemed to lend him a strength that medicine alone couldn't provide. When Ember and Luna were briefly allowed to visit their brother, the scene brought tears to Clara's eyes. 3 grown leopards and their canine surrogate mother, reunited in a moment of need. Shadow's recovery was slow but steady. By week's end, he was eating regularly, his energy returning, and the infection began responding to the antibiotics. His prognosis shifted from uncertain to promising. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Larson told Clara as they watched Shadow take his first tentative steps around the quarantine enclosure, Bella walking patiently beside him. "In 20 years of working with wildlife, I've never seen a bond like this." Clara smiled. "Love crosses species," she said simply, reflecting on the countless wonders she'd witnessed in her career. On the day Shadow was strong enough to return to the main habitat, Sophie proposed an unprecedented idea. Let Bella go with him, just for today, to help him settle back with Ember and Luna. It was an unusual request, but the sanctuary's director approved it under strict supervision. Clara watched from the observation deck as Bella accompanied Shadow into the enclosure. Ember and Luna approached, and the 3 leopards greeted each other with soft purrs and gentle head bumps. Then, in a moment that seemed almost choreographed, they surrounded Bella, each finding a place beside her as they had as cubs. For several minutes, the unusual family rested together, wild and domestic, feline and canine, bound by a love forged in hardship. "This is why I've done this work," Clara whispered to Hannah, a colleague who had driven in upon hearing of Shadow's illness. "For moments like this, when healing comes in the most unexpected ways." In the years that followed, the bond between Bella and her leopard family endured, a testament to the extraordinary power of connection in the face of adversity. As the leopards Shadow, Ember, and Luna matured into their full strength at the Willow Creek Sanctuary in Montana, their need for Bella's constant presence lessened, yet their bond with her remained unshakable. Bella, now older but still lively, continued her daily visits to their enclosure. No longer their surrogate mother, she had become a cherished companion, her presence vital to their well-being in a quieter, deeper way. The sanctuary, in collaboration with the nearby Silver Ridge Preserve, published a groundbreaking paper on this extraordinary case, offering valuable insights into wildlife rehabilitation and the power of interspecies bonds. Clara, who retired at 65 after decades of dedication, often shared the story of Bella and her leopard family in her lectures to aspiring wildlife rehabilitators. Sometimes the most potent medicine isn't found in a syringe or an operating room, she would say, displaying photos of Bella with the leopards through the years, cubs tumbling over her, adolescents nuzzling her, adults resting beside her. Sometimes it's in connection, in meeting a need so fundamental it defies the boundaries we assume exist between species. On quiet evenings, Clara would visit the preserve to see the animals that had reshaped her understanding of what was possible. She'd watch Bella, now elderly but still devoted, sitting calmly by the habitat fence. Shadow, Ember, and Luna, now majestic adults, would lounge nearby, their family bond enduring despite the logic that suggested wild creatures and a domestic dog should drift apart. "The unthinkable," Clara would murmur, recalling her initial doubts when Sophie first proposed pairing Bella with the orphaned leopard cubs. Sometimes the unthinkable is exactly what's needed. In the golden glow of sunset, wild and domestic, rescued and rescuer, they remained a family in the truest sense, a living testament to the healing power of love without boundaries.